And we're back
We're
again.
we're back again with more WandaVision. We have WandaVision back in our life, Jeremy. We just can't stop talking about it.
No, here we are getting ready to talk about episode 6 of WandaVision here on this wonderful Monday. Don't forget, if this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss these weekly recaps, plus all of our other videos we put on the channel. And we definitely appreciate you taking the time to watch this. But yeah, let's get into the middle of WandaVision.
Yes, let's.
Let's keep it going, so there may be no way of knowing who's coming by to play.
Jeremy, what happened in this episode? Tell me. Recap it for us.
Well, unlike some of the other episodes, this one started all off with the jumping right into the intro for the show. And a surprise to me, it was a complete duplicate of the Malcolm in the Middle intro.
Yes, a show I actually know and have seen.
Me too. And it surprised me because I thought for sure this week we're going into the 90s. Because for those who don't know, Malcolm in the Middle actually came out in the year 2000. It's not a 90s show. So we jumped over the 90s into the 2000s, and we're in that decade now. And
yeah, new century.
Yep, new century. That's right, turn of the century. So this intro, like I said, is very much like Malcolm in the middle, and
Malcolm in the Meadow would be a very different show.
yes. And it's got all the same text, like the speed of it. And very interesting in this intro, though, is two things. It's for the first time we have Pietro being part of the intro, but then oddly, Agnes was part of the intro in this one, which I think that's the first time. Might be wrong, but I think that's the first time that's happened. And so
it really stood
weird.
out with this one. Yeah.
Yes, it did. So we get that intro, and then it jumps right into the show, very much just like Malcolm in the Middle. It starts off with Billy, one of the twins, talking into the camera, just like Malcolm would at the beginning of an episode, talking about what's going on in the family and all the different issues, and other people are around him interacting as well with the camera. And it's just very much has that focus, which it was just... It amazed me how well they did with that, which goes into our thoughts. But anywho, with the rest of the recap, it's Halloween day, and Billy's all excited about going trick-or-treating. His brother Tommy thinks it's lame to go dress up as trick-or-treating, so he's the cool twin, not dressing up as anything. And so they're having their conversation, and Pietro is sleeping on the couch as being the kind of lazy, cool uncle that's super mysterious and that the twins are afraid of, but think he's so cool. And so he's got that typical vibe. I believe Francis is the character that he kind of would be similar to in Malcolm in the Middle. And then it cuts to Wanda comes down the stairs wearing for the first time her classic Scarlet Witch outfit from the comics. Of course, she plays it off as being some kind of fortune teller, Sokovian fortune teller. But we all know, for those who have looked at the comics, that that is the Scarlet Witch costume. And then after that, Vision comes down as well, wearing his classic costume. So that leads to... basically, what drives the rest of the WandaVision world is Vision decides that he's going to do neighborhood watch stuff that night instead of taking the twins trick-or-treating. And Wanda's not happy about that. She says, that's not how this is supposed to go. And he's like, what do you mean? And she's like, well, it's their first time trick-or-treating. You should be there. And he's out of it. No, I'm going to do the neighborhood watch stuff. So Pietro, being the cool uncle, steps in, says, hey, I'll be the father figure for them for the evening. And Wanda agrees to it, even though she's not happy with it. So that's the intro. And then about for the first fourth of the episode is just more stuff, very Malcolm in the Middle-esque type of show. Then we cut to modern times, back with Sword, and director Haywood is continuing to be a grade A jerk. He is just the typical MCU government bad guy that we've seen in all the other ones, making choices that us as the audience are like, you are an idiot, but at the same time coming across very much like, I'm the bad guy and you should hate me type of mentality. And
Yeah.
he kicks Monica and Jimmy Woo and Darcy off the base. And so the three of them decide to do some shenanigans to keep themselves on the base secretly, hiding around so they can do some hacking to figure out what in the heck is Director Haywood doing. So Darcy does some hacking on her computer, figures out there's some secret files he has, something called the Cataract Project, trying to figure out what's going on. And so that's what they have going on. And Monica's talking about how she has a friend coming into town that she's going to meet that's going to get her back into the Hex, which, oh, by the way, apparently Darcy has discovered that due to the two times that Monica's gone through the barrier, her DNA has changed on a molecular level. So see what happens with that. But that's where Monica and Jimmy decide to leave. Darcy decides to stay to do more hacking. And so Monica and Jimmy leave to go meet this friend that we don't see what happens with that yet. Sure, that's coming in a future episode. But then Darcy does some more hacking and figures out that the director is tracking Vision within the Wanda's world. And there's something, and it's saying something about reacquiring the asset. And so that is basically everything that happens in the modern day world on its own. And so in WandaVision, in her Wanda's world now, we cut to what Vision's been doing. And Vision's just been doing a lot of investigating. And he's checking into more of just these odd occurrences that have been going on in the world that he's noticed. And he starts discovering the further away he gets from Wanda and where his house is, the more things get weird, meaning he finds a lady that's hanging up a sheet to like represent a ghost, and her arms just in a repetitive motion going up and down, just with a blank stare on her face, just like, I don't even know what I'm doing. I'm just doing what I'm supposed to type look. And so that's odd.
Yeah, it's very much like if you've ever, played a game and you just see a character just doing the same set of actions over and over, like a background character, you just watch them. It's very much like that.
Yes. And then as Vision moves further to the outskirts of town, then people are just frozen. No one's moving, nothing's happening. And he comes upon a car that is stopped at a stop sign, and Agnes is in it. And so he interacts with Agnes. She's talking about how she's gotten lost, even though she's lived in this town all of her life. And he's like, that's really weird. And so he uses his abilities to reawaken her mind. And she starts freaking out. And she's like, oh, it's you. You're an Avenger. And Vision's like, what's an Avenger? Because he can't remember anything before his time here in Westview. And Agnes starts freaking out, saying, oh my gosh, am I dead? And Vision's like, no, why would you be dead? And she's like, because you're dead. And that's shocking news to Vision. And then she starts laughing hysterically, just like everything's going to end, the world is over. And so Vision puts her back under her trance. And he starts making his way to the edge of town where he finds the barrier of this world and starts going through it. And this is where the two worlds collide again. So Vision's starting to come out. Everyone from S.W.O.R.D. is storming to the edge to see him come out. Darcy's there as well. They've handcuffed her to a car. And he comes out. And as he's coming out, the world's not wanting to let him come out. It's like trying to suck him back in. And as he's coming out, his body's starting to fall apart. And pieces of him are flying back into Wanda's world. And he's basically dying. So we discover within this that we discovered a little earlier that both the twins are developing powers. Tommy's developed the ability of super speed just like his uncle, while Billy, in this moment, it's discovered that he can hear people's thoughts and kind of see what they're doing. And so he hears Vision's cries for help. And side note, Vision's not crying for help for himself, but asking the S.W.O.R.D. people to come and help the people that are in there. Shows how much of a hero he really is, since he's more focused on everyone else when he's in pain trying to leave the world. And so Billy's freaking out because he senses his dad's in trouble, runs to Wanda, tells her what's going on, says dad is dying. And so Wanda freezes everything around her, does some hand motions with her abilities and expands their hands out. And all of a sudden, the whole barrier starts expanding beyond where it was, captures some S.W.O.R.D. people, turns them into clowns, turns their base of operations into a circus tent. And it's coming in towards more people and just expanding into more of the real world. So the director is with some people in a car and they seem to escape. Darcy does get sucked into it. We don't know what happened to her yet. Vision gets sucked in and he's collapsed on the ground. And we assume that Monica and Jimmy Woo are not in the world and they're still out in the outskirts, but we don't see that. And that's how the whole episode ends, is this expansion of the WandaVision world getting bigger and bigger, and it fades to black.
Cliffhanger.
Let's keep it going, though there may be no way of knowing who's coming by to play.
So, Andrew, what were your thoughts on this week's episode?
I really liked this episode a lot. Yeah, I feel like they kind of backed off of treating Wanda as the antagonist and had a much more empathetic view of her character this episode, which I thought was really great. I do want to highlight what Lindsay commented on our video from last week, talking about the angry woman stereotype. I would agree I dislike the angry woman stereotype. However, with Monica's intervention / mediation, I think Marvel is not perpetuating it. Rather, they are setting it up to frame Wanda as the villain, when in reality it is someone else. And she thinks that correlates to the sword theory that we've had with the director probably being one of the more obvious bad guys here. But I think that Marvel has very much done that. They've shifted away from that and have focused, have made it a bit more obvious that the director is not a good guy and he seems to have some nefarious motivations. So I was really pleased to see that aspect develop a little bit more and get away from the grieving Wanda as the bad guy here. I really liked how the episode balanced the different story arcs that are going on. So we had all the WandaVision stuff, the in-universe show. We had Vision doing his investigations and kind of seeing the facade of the show breaking down. Then we also had our mix of real life stuff. And you know me, I like the juggling act here that Marvel has going on, and I think they handled it really well. So I was a big fan of this episode. What did you think of it, Jeremy?
Yeah, I would agree. I enjoyed it from multiple aspects. I mean, from a capturing the vibe of, since they were just parroting Malcolm in the Middle, spot on, yes. Just like a Malcolm in the Middle episode, right from the get-go. I mean, even Vision was trying to impersonate Bryan Cranston's take on his character in that show a little bit, being the goofy, like, kind of silly dad at the beginning. And so it was really cool, just like, they really paid tribute very well to that show. And that was a show I actually came into late. I didn't watch it when it was on TV. I watched it later on, and I ended up binging it because I enjoyed it so much. And it was just one of those, it was very well done television for the 2000 to 2006 time when it was on air. But I felt they did a really good job capturing that aspect, and as well as they progressed the story. Like you said with Wanda, it's good to see more of a shift of not being so much of portraying her as the bad guy now and really putting Sword in that position of being the ones that are being stubborn, especially the director, and just clearly having an ulterior motive. You see a lot of the interaction with Wanda and Pietro, which didn't talk about in the recap, but I liked the interaction there because it really added some elements where you're not quite sure what to think now about Pietro, because he's kind of just acting like everything's nonchalant, not a big deal, because he recognizes that none of this is really real. It's a world that Wanda has made, and so he just kind of makes offhand comments, like when Vision's having his issue and Billy runs to tell her what's going on. He's like, "Oh, don't worry about it. Like your dead husband can't die a second time." And Wanda is like not happy with that. Uses her abilities to launch him across the ground and like into some hay, and like. So it's like he's just a very different character, not very empathetic. So it's very interesting and dynamic there just to see some things going on with their relationship. And then also just, the progression of what's going on both sides, Vision and what he's doing. It's just, we're seeing some ramp up with the actual show now as we're getting into the last 3 episodes. And where it's like, okay, things are going to come to a head and there's going to be some kind of climax. But at the same time, there's still mystery, because Wanda has even admitted in her conversations with Pietro in this episode that she doesn't even remember creating the world. Like, she doesn't remember this existing before. Like, she remembers after the events in Endgame feeling very isolated and alone. And the next thing she remembers is being in this world with Vision. So it's interesting because it's just there is that mystery still of like, while everyone's blaming Wanda right now for creating this, and she seems to have the capability to control things, she can't control everything because she can't control Vision, she can't control her brother, and she can't control her own kids. And so that's just, there's a lot of still that mystery that the show needs to just keep you engaged. And so I feel like I agree, they captured everything really well. Really curious to see what happens next.
Let's keep it going, so there may be no way of knowing who's coming by to play.
Well, Jeremy, let's talk about what's happening next. Let's talk about our theories. So a while back, I had my John Rambo theory that I really think is going to be coming to fruition here soon. So if you're watching this, just share this episode with your friends with the hashtag John Rambo is coming, just to support that theory. I don't really have a whole lot of new theories for this episode. I feel like we had a lot more development of what we've already seen rather than kind of new mysteries being introduced, which I'm very thankful for. I'd rather we not have a bunch of new mysteries this late into the game. But I think there's more going on with the Agnes character than she's currently letting on. Her portrayal at kind of the edge of the hex, or, you know, the boundary area that Vision was investigating, was not consistent with the rest of what we saw out there. Like, she was stuck, but she was still like somewhat able to control herself there. So I think there's something going on with her. I don't know what sort of role she has to play, but the fact that she was featured at all in that intro for this episode, and the fact that she's kind of been this mysterious character throughout and had a pretty big role with the twins in the previous episode, with like bringing the dog around and also being the one who found it dead. There's just some weirdness going on there. So I think there's more going on with Agnes than meets the eye.
I would agree with that. Like, I am curious, like, because of, especially with her being in the intro, but it seems like they've kind of, the writers have intentionally had this happen with her interaction with Vision to throw you off that track, to make you think, okay, no, maybe she's not involved with the things. Like, it seemed like she might, so it becomes more of a surprise later. But I think along with that, I think another person involved, potentially, whether it's both of them working together or it's just this other character on his own, I think Pietro actually is involved in some capacity. So, like, my theory is that I don't believe that Pietro is who he says he is. He says during the episode that he doesn't remember anything either about where he came from before showing up in this world. He says,
details are fuzzy, man. I got shot like a chump in the street for no reason at all, and next thing I know, I heard you calling me. I knew you needed me.
and just the way he acted as well during the show, it wasn't the Pietro character we knew, but it's also not the X-Men Quicksilver character that we know. He, like I said in our thoughts, like, he has very little empathy for the situation of anything that Wanda's feeling, other than just being a listening ear, and he just regurgitates to her what she basically would want to hear. And so he really gives off this vibe that he may be involved in some way. Not quite sure how that plays into the fact that he has super speed. I know I've read some stuff online that people think maybe Mephisto is behind a lot of this stuff. He is, for those who don't know, he is the kind of head demon character in the MCU, and he makes deals with people, and that he could be tied in some way, maybe even Pietro being that character, because, for one, if there is a comic series that's out there that this show seems to be taking some things from, that Wanda's kids are actually part of Mephisto's soul in this comic. And so the fact of, at one point, Pietro says, tells the twins to go unleash demon spawn upon the town, is one thing that kind of leads to that kind of a hint. And also just the fact of, his destruction of everything with the twins, of destroying all the pumpkins and everything, and just his overall attitude very much is just he's not the character that we would think he would be, being a brother and sympathetic.
Yeah, Pietro had a lot of lines this episode that I feel like there's going to be a twist in an upcoming episode regarding his character that's going to be like, that was really on the nose with a lot of these lines.
And that's the thing is like I said, either whether it's him and Agnes working together, like maybe they're partners, or it's just Pietro himself. I'm not sure. So that's my one theory. The one continuing theory I'd say we'd have from our previous video is the whole thing with Sword. We talked about in last video how Sword clearly was doing something nefarious with Vision's body, and that was reinforced in this episode with the fact that once they started reacquiring the asset, as Director Haywood's mission said, like, they just clearly wanted him back. They want his body back. They don't care what state it's in, because they wouldn't go up there and actually try to help him as he was coming out. It's like they're just waiting for him to get back into their hands to do whatever they're doing. So because of that, I think it does reinforce, which helps put Wanda more in the protagonist role again, of being somewhat of a victim, is that I think it really does speak to that Sword was doing something with his body, and so Wanda goes and gets Vision's body and has created this world to protect him because the fact his will stated he didn't want his body to end up in the wrong hands where it could be used for nefarious purposes. And so her best way to do that was to create a world where nobody remembers what happened prior, and he can just exist in this world, and it just happens to be that also at the same time she gets to live out the world that her and Vision wanted to have together for the rest of their lives, and he's kept safe, and he's also kept in a place where no one can use him in some kind of bad way. So I'm hoping that's revealed at some point, that Wanda reveals, yes, I took your body, and yes, I did this with it, as hopefully people's memories come back. Don't know if people's memories will come back or not, but if it does, I think we'll see that explanation at some point, and that's what I expect, that Wanda's going to explain, hey, you were being experimented on, and that's not what you wanted, so I had to get you and put you somewhere. But we will see, because there's definitely a bigger mystery still involved, even beyond that, of clearly someone's pulling some strings beyond even Director Haywood being a super jerk.
That's his superpower, super jerk.
Let's keep it going, though there may be no way of knowing who's coming by to play.
Well, those were our theories. Thank you so much for watching. What are your theories? Let us know in the comments below. Be sure to include the hashtag John Rambo is coming to maybe have your theories featured on the next episode of the WandaVision recap from HitPoint. Be sure to keep the conversation going in our comments below or on our Discord. Links are in the description.
Thanks so much for tuning in. Don't forget to hit that like button. Subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss our videos. And don't forget, keep an eye on your health bar.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you so much for tuning into HitPoint. We hope this refilled your health bar and provided a much needed mental break. If you are new to the channel, don't forget to click the logo that's over my face. Or if you want more content, click here or here.